Well, good afternoon, everybody. This is Joanne Stevens, and this is our Thursday call-in show for mobile home park owners and for other mobile home industry participants. We're going to have a very dynamic show today. We have 3 appraisers, possibly 4 appraisers from Colliers International Appraisal Services, and they are true experts in appraising mobile home parks. They have done literally hundreds and hundreds, probably thousands of mobile home park appraisals. And they're going to tell us about some things that they're seeing in the market, which there is a very dynamic market today for mobile home parks. So before I introduce our Colliers guests, I want to make a couple of announcements. I want people to be able to access the July newsletter for mobile home park owners. It's on our website, joannemstevens.com. Just go on there and click for it, or if you want to have it mailed to you or emailed to you, just let me know. Just give me a call, 319-378-6786. We'll be glad to mail it to you as well, and it's a free newsletter. Also want to remind people of upcoming events that are on if you go to the website and click on Save the Date, the next mobile home industry event is the RV and Mobile Home Hall of Fame inductee dinner, which will be in August in Elkhart, Indiana at the museum. One more reminder is that in December in Cedar Rapids, we are going to have a mobile home park owner symposium where we'll be talking about things like 1031 exchanges, what is your park worth, and other things that are pertinent to owning and operating a mobile home park. So that's December 11th and 12th here in Cedar Rapids, and there will be more information coming. So without further ado, I do want to introduce our Colliers International Mobile Home Park Appraisers. And leading the team is Chuck Schierbeck, and Chuck is an MAI appraiser. And just so people know, an MAI is the highest designation one can achieve in the appraisal field. And so when you have an appraiser who is an MAI, that's like a PhD in appraisal. And Chuck certainly would be a PhD in the appraisal world. He's been nationally recognized by his peers for his work in the appraisal business of mobile home parks, and he has many significant clients that he does appraisals for in the business. So Chuck, are you on the line?
I am on the line, yes.
Great. And Chuck, would you introduce yourself, and then we'll ask the other Colliers appraisers to introduce themselves.
Yeah, so again, Chuck Schierbeck, MAI. I've been appraising since 2001, and I've specialized in manufactured housing since about 2005. I got into the business because the person I was working with, Bruce Nell, that was his specialty. And together we grew the specialty at a previous firm that we were with, and we went all over the country doing these when we were there. I've personally have appraised communities in 46 different states.
Oh, for heaven! Wow.
Yeah. So, but when the market went down with the subprime issues, we left our previous appraisal firm and we joined. Well, at the time it was a different name. But what would be eventually become Colliers, we joined them in 2008, and the reason we joined them was they had out on the West Coast, they had a group of appraisers that were experts in manufactured housing out there, and
Sure.
a lot of times for the same clients, we were doing everything east of the Rockies, and they were doing everything west of the Rockies. So we sort of joined forces, and that gave us a really nice national coverage.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, we've got, and I'm going to roll through some of the major guys that we have in our firm that covers.
Yeah, please.
Andrew Baseflug is our leader out in the Pacific Northwest. Bob Steed and Mark Perry, who's on this call, are out in California.
Okay.
Mike Yeager is one of our leaders in the Southwest, and John Fletcher, who was going to be on this call, he may be listening in, but he's our leader out in Colorado. He covers sort of the the mountain states up into
Okay.
he kind of crosses over into your area as well. But anyhow, John is actually, I would say, one of our best writers in the company. He really explains things quite well in his appraisals. And then we've got a couple of guys, Dan Mayer and Mike Miggins in Texas. And then in Florida, we have Nancy Caniff, who's on this call, and Bob Black, who also specializes in RV parks. And then up here in the Midwest, I've got a team of me and about 3 other appraisers that cover the Midwest, and sometimes we get up into the Northeast, but we're mostly Midwest. So that's kind of
Sure
the history of how our superhero team came together, and it's our origin story.
Well, that's a great story.
Yeah, let me let Nancy, why don't you go next and give a little background on yourself.
Hi, Nancy.
Mark, are you there?
I am.
Okay, why don't you give a little background on your history in the industry?
Okay, so my name's Mark Perry. I've been with Collier since 2010 and doing mobile home parks since then. Prior to that, I was with CalPERS, who is the state pension fund out here, and I was actually on the other side. I was part of their appraisal management division, so I would order the appraisals from a number of different vendors that we had. At the time, it was PGP, and then it went to First Service and now Colliers. But so I ordered appraisals from them, and as Chuck said, with the downturn in the market, everybody was scrambling a little bit, seeing where the best fit might be, and got the offer to come over to Colliers and work on that side instead of the CalPERS side, and have been here ever since, working with Bob, trying to grow the West Coast mobile home park market on the appraisal side, if you will. So that's all we do as a part of our group. We're not a generalist. We just mobile home and RV parks is all we work on each month. So we can really offer that kind of expertise that way.
Mark, I'm very pleased to have you on the call. I think that's a great background from being on the acquisition side to the appraisal side. We don't see that very often. And I'm also, you made an important point that you are all specialists in the mobile home park, manufactured home community appraisal world.
Right. Yeah. And I would say that everybody that I listed off is probably looking at a minimum of one community a month. So we're ready.
Sure.
And for me, that's all I do. I'm looking at
right
5 to 10 a month. So
right. Well, I think one thing that would help our to get started with our call today is, could you explain what is the difference between an appraisal and just having the real estate agent or the real estate broker look at your property, look at your financials, and tell you what the property is worth? That's a question I run into a lot. So, Chuck, would you like to start?
Yeah, well, as an appraiser, we're one of the key things is that we're licensed, and we pride ourselves as appraisers in being, unbiased third parties. So we're not looking to sell your property. We're not looking to do anything other than provide you an unbiased value. In addition, we sometimes, or actually we do have access to information that not all market participants may have. So
Sure.
we've looked at significant number of properties. We keep an eye on the market, as would a broker or other market participants. But we certainly have a unique angle on the market in terms of we're much more the eggheads of the world in terms of looking at these things from a somewhat detached, no play in the game sort of thing.
Right. There's no conflict of interest there. That's an important point. Mark, did you have anything you wanted to add to what Chuck said?
No, yeah, I would just piggyback off of what he said, and what we're able to do, like Chuck said, is offer that independent third party point of view, and with that independent point of view, we can collaborate a number of different broker opinions to add into our appraisal as well. So we would have, like Chuck said, a number of sales that we will only have because we're so in touch with the market every day, and we're getting communication to multiple different brokers who are active, as opposed to maybe the broker doing the BOI would just be or BOV, excuse me, would just have their own information and not comps from other brokers. So we can offer all of those, as well as maybe their cap rate opinions on the market. So we can offer 3 or 4 different brokers' opinions on cap rates, as opposed to a broker providing a BOV would just be offering theirs.
Sure. And I think one elephant in the room that we might as well talk about right from the start is that a lot of times the park owner, community owner, wants the real estate agent or the broker to do a market evaluation. Real estate agents are not appraisers, as you both are, and so and the real estate agent has the magic thing that real estate owners like, and the word is a 4-letter word, free, and generally speaking. So what can you give us a range of what a park owner would expect to pay for a top-notch appraiser from Colliers?
Well, part of what we do with appraisals is we have different options in terms of the amount of writing we do in an appraisal, and it gets to how the appraisal is used. So if I'm doing an appraisal for a Fannie or a Freddie, those are Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, I abbreviate things, for those lenders, they have much more stringent guidelines in terms of what needs to be in an appraisal.
Okay.
So there's a lot of information a lot of extra work we have to do for those sorts of appraisers. For an owner, it would be much, the use is much more tight. They want to know what the value, they may not need all that extra information. So we could probably do a more reasonable thing. So for Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, we're doing stuff anywhere from $5,000 to $6,000, but for an individual owner, $3,000 is about where we're looking.
Okay.
And it's possible, it's possible we could get lower than that, but the lower you get, the less we would offer, and the utility of the appraisal will go down. I will also say that when you order an appraisal just to get the value, or you order it as an owner, you're limited in what you can then do with that appraisal. So, you know,
Sure.
because FIRE and other requirements require that for lending purposes, the bank has to order the appraisal. So,
yes, that's an important point. So, you know, I've seen the Colliers appraisals. They're excellent. They're very high quality, a tremendous amount of research, and it's $3,000, or even if it's a little more than that, or you know, there's probably no cookie cutter appraisal, just like there's no cookie cutter mobile home parks, but it's well worth it just for the just setting the actual value that the appraiser arrives at. Just the information of the property alone is probably well worth the $3,000 or so.
yeah. Yeah, and I think one of the things that's of use for an owner would be trying to understand where your property lines up against the rest of the market. So, you know, part of what we come to in terms of value is, you know, I've seen a lot of communities that are acquired. The rents at the property are, you know, $50 to $100 below what other properties in the market are offering. So
very common.
Yeah, you know, somebody would come in, increase rents, and there's extra value. And from a current owner perspective, you know, if somebody else is going to come and buy your property and do that, you might as well do that now.
Right.
Increase the value of your property so you can get more when you sell it. So that's something that I think we could highlight for an owner. You know, you look at the $3,000 cost of getting appraisal, but then you have to compare that against you know, the cost of not really understanding where your property stacks up versus the market, and then you can get to tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars difference. So I think just as kind of a pegging where my property is versus the market, and even just to look at where your expenses are versus the market. We have, and this is something I'm going to offer to your listeners or to anybody that subscribes to your newsletter, is I'm going to send you, after we're off the phone here, I'm going to send you our manufactured housing summary report, and it will have national trends in terms of expenses, cap rates, cap rate survey of brokers that we've done, rent and occupancy levels. And it's kind of a starting point if people want to kind of gauge your things. But again, you know, each property is unique, and having a professional appraiser look at where your property is and relative to the market is, I mean, I guess I'm biased, but I think it's worth the cost. Yeah.
Yes, very much so. And Mark, perhaps you'd like to weigh in on what Chuck was just talking about with the appraisals and the different ways that they're used, or just especially if you have any examples, or also Chuck, you have people that have looked at the appraisal and realized that perhaps their property was under the market, and did they end up, you know, raising the rent and increasing the value of their park? Do you want to speak to that, Mark, or either one of you? Yeah, go ahead,
so
Mark.
Just recently, we had a property where the owner had asked us to do an appraisal. I want to say probably 18 months ago, and after seeing the appraisal, he realized that his rents were substantially below market. And over the last 18 months, through two separate rent increases, he's able to bring the rents up approximately $115 per space per month.
Wow.
So, you know, that's pretty substantial when you think about the impact on value. And, you know, I think that particular assignment was $3,500. So for $3,500, you know, he was able to gain another, you know, $1 million in value because he wasn't aware of where his community sat in terms of the market, like Chuck was describing. The other thing that we do appraisals for quite often. At least it seems like for us in California right now, it's been happening a lot for estate purposes. So when a person passes away, so whether it's a spouse or a parent who passed away and is leaving the property to their kids, these appraisals come in quite often for estate purposes or for any other unfortunate circumstance like a divorce or separation or something like that, or a dissolution of a partnership. So there's quite a few reasons that you would need an appraisal other than just a purchase or a just curiosity. So estate purposes, refinance purposes. A number of times banks will require appraisals just for asset monitoring, especially after the crash. They're required to appraise a percentage of their portfolio, just kind of keep an eye on things. So there's a number of reasons, and it's obviously very important to have somebody who knows the market, specifically mobile home parks, since it's such a unique property type.
Yeah, those are important points that you raised, Mark. And I want to, add to what Mark just said, because there's no way a real estate agent or a real estate broker could do the kind of deep dive on the work that is involved in an appraisal. It's perfectly fine to call a mobile home park broker. There's quite a few of them in the United States today. I'm a broker, but there's no way that a broker can possibly do this kind of work and, on a complimentary free market evaluation or market assessment or whatever word the broker wants to use. Brokers are not appraisers. Brokers do have a fair amount of market information too, but when you own real estate, when you own a real estate asset such as the mobile home park, it's quite significant, and one should not hesitate to get expert advice that an appraiser can bring to you, especially if you are going to buy, sell, refinance. There's an estate, or just all the many reasons why people have an appraisal. It's generally not just for the curiosity of it. So great. Well, one thing that I wanted to ask you about that agents get asked about a lot is capitalization rates and cap rates. There's, kind of for owners of mobile home parks and communities, there's sort of a general cloudiness in their thinking about what is it. They hear people talking about that. Chuck, would you like to start with that, and then we'll ask Mark to add to what you say.
Yeah. It is somewhat of a regional phenomena. So I've got this is something I put together based on 2016 and 17 first quarter data. In the Midwest, I mean, it's a fairly broad range. We've seen stuff as low as just under 5% cap rate to over 11%. The average is about 7.5%.
Okay.
Out west, there's a similar on the upper end, about 11 cap. On the low end, it's under 4%, and average is 6.65. In the south, and this includes Florida, so it's influenced by that on the low end, but it goes 4.5 to 14%. Your 14% would probably be more Class C, Alabama stuff. But the average is about 7.4%, and the Northeast, you're at about 5 to 10, but the average is 7.5. Now, one of the things that we talk about, we look at, a lot of times when people talk about manufactured housing, they'll talk about the star system, a 1-star community to a 5-star. We use an alphabetical classification. We talk about A, B, and C. A being your top shelf stuff, B being your still fairly good properties, and C being you know, not bad stuff, but not your top shelf properties. So, you know, Class A, Class B, you're looking somewhere between, in the Midwest, you're looking somewhere between 6 and 7. You're looking 7 to 8, depending on the location, for more strictly Class B, and then, you know, somewhere between 7.5 to 10 to 11 for Class C. And again, it's, you know, location and quality even within that subset, you know. And
Sure.
other issues would be, you know, is it municipal water? Is it on-site water, sewer? Those are sort of the things that will move it one way or another. So when you're looking at valuing a property, one of the things that you want to consider is, you know, what its location is, and what, you know, what amenities, what quality it has. And those are all things that'll push something to the upper or lower end of the range.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
So that's kind of
that's
a
great
broad
insight.
brush, and yeah, and a little focus on Midwest. I wanted to check and see, Nancy, are you? I couldn't hear you earlier. Are you able to chime in a little bit?
Press *6 to be unmuted if Nancy or Jonathan joins the call.
Okay. Well, Mark, did you have some thoughts on what are people looking at in California? And if you could also, I'm curious to know what you've done some stuff throughout the country. I know on portfolios we're working on. How do you see what goes on in California as a little different from the rest of the country?
Yeah, so yeah, like you said, most of the stuff that I work on is California or Nevada, but for portfolio assignments and things like that, we do stretch out a little bit further. California is a little bit unique in the fact that cap rates are very, very low. You know, I would say that your Class A type of property, you know, again, not knowing all the factors, but it could be anywhere in the high 4s to, you know, maybe a high 5s is probably pretty safe range. For larger properties in California right now, which obviously across the country it's the same, you know, there's a high demand for large quality product. In California, it seems if there's a large quality park with any kind of upside, so say in utility pass-throughs or rental rates, it almost seems like there's no bottom to where that cap rate could fall. You know, we've seen quite a few sales that have been traded for, you know, even sub 4 in the low 4s because there's upside in rent levels or utility structure. So it seems like they are willing to pay for quality and size out in California, maybe a little bit more of a premium than in other states. The one thing that we have noticed, just because, you know, there's approximately 5,300 parks in California, a number of parks that we appraise are sometimes smaller, more community, what we would kind of refer to as a mom and pop type of operation, where you're probably in that 25 to 70 space range. And depending on quality on those, you know, like Chuck said before, there's a number of factors that obviously play into it, but those cap rates are actually increasing because there's not as much demand for that product right now. Just buyers aren't willing to pay for a small, rough community. You know, it seems like the money is kind of pushing towards these larger, nicer communities, and people are willing to pay a premium to get into something like that, as opposed to some of these smaller, say, fair to average or fair to average type of parks, you know, more your C quality type of parks in a secondary, tertiary market.
Okay. Well, that's an interesting phenomena that you're seeing cap rates actually rise a little bit in California on those smaller mom and pop properties.
Right.
And Chuck, what do you think about that in the Midwest when you have the smaller mom and pop properties with this and the smaller markets, at tertiary markets? So that would be populations of would that be, say, 25,000 or less, or how would you what do you consider a tertiary market in terms of population or other characteristics?
Yeah, no, I think that's about right. Yeah, certainly the smaller, as I said earlier, it's mostly about location. So something in Chicago versus
Cedar Rapids.
Illinois,
Yeah, right.
I mean, it's going to be a huge drop off in terms of capitalization rates. Even Chicago to Bourbonnais. I mean, it's going to be you don't have to get that far out.
Yeah.
But I mean, even at that point, there's a high quality community that I praised there, out in Bourbonnais that would be a Class A property that's seeing increases in rents and occupancy, and so there's even it depends on the market and what role the community plays in the market. I mean, if it's if it were I don't care about the size of like something like Flint, it's the direction the demographics are taking and the stigma of the market as well. So there's a variety of factors in each place. I'd have to kind of qualify, but those are certainly some trends that we're seeing.
Okay.
One thing more on cap rates, and this kind of gets back to why you'd want an expert, is you've got to understand what's included in the sale as it's reported in terms of the cap rate. So some people are looking at their expenses and they're not maybe including a management fee or a reserve, or
sure.
Maybe they're including the salary of a nephew that doesn't really do that much in the community that would get fired if it were to be, so what are all those expenses that you might think of as normal that maybe could be excluded, or maybe you're missing something, and that's going to alter. If you apply a market cap rate to an incomplete picture, you're going to come out with a wrong value.
Sure.
So,
yeah. Right.
Those are elements that really need. It's one of the reasons why either if you're going to go the broker route or the appraiser route, one thing I would key in on is that expertise in the asset class is important to understand how things are done in the greater market, what large owner operators are looking at and what small owner operators are looking at.
Sure.
Because someone that's maybe somebody's done just appraisals for Wall Street and Fannie Mae sort of stuff on MH, but they haven't done a small bank assignment where they're looking at a mom and pop and they apply a high quality properties payroll and assume that that's what it would be for a mom and pop that has maybe 50 sites, and they're paying somebody free rent to collect rent from people.
Which happens all the time.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, in terms of a bank appraisal, then they're getting that wrong. So it's important to have someone that's seen the range. There's different types of competencies. There's property specific, there's locational competencies. One of the things I think we've done well in our company is that we've covered both of those things with the way we're set up. So
yes, I think you're very well versed in all of the multiple factors that can affect value that need to be questioned and you need to look at. Now we're getting close to to 140, and our call does end promptly at 140. And but So before we run out of time, I want to make sure that our listeners, and we'll put this in the next newsletter, of how our listeners can contact you if they would like to talk about an appraisal. So Mark, why don't you go first and give our listeners a how they can contact you with your phone number, email, and website.
Okay. Well, the website is colliers.com, and my email is mark, M-A-R-C, .perry, P as in Paul, E-R-R-Y, at colliers.com. And phone number is 916-724-5502.
Great. And Chuck?
Yeah, my in our convention is first name dot last name at the company, so it's Chuck.Schierbeck, and Schierbeck is spelled S-C-H-I-E-R, B as in boy, E-C-K, at colliers.com, and my number here is 614-437-4690. If you have questions on Florida, Nancy's email is nancy.caniff, C-A-N-I-F-F, at colliers.com. Her number is 904-316-2124. And those are kind of some of the regions that we'd cover. So feel free to give any one of us a call.
In our remaining moments, are there any comments you'd like to make about trends? When you were talking about the cap rates, and that was good information. Are these about the best cap rates either one of you have seen in this business?
Yeah. For me, the cap rates we're seeing are I would call them unprecedented. I mean, if you're looking at refinancing or selling your property, this is it's a seller's market. I would if you're looking at getting out, I wouldn't wait. So.
And how about you, Mark? Anything to add to what Chuck just said?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, a few months ago seems like they were a little bit more aggressive when interest rates were a little bit lower, but they're still very aggressive, lower than what I've seen in the last 10 years or so.
Yeah, so even what you're saying is they've even have, they're higher than they were before the crash or before the financial recession that started in 2008, and where in 2007, I think we were hearing investors say that prices were at an all-time high, cap rates were at an all-time low.
Yeah.
And so do you see that continuing, or Mark, you just mentioned that interest rates are up. How are you seeing that affect value?
I would say it's more balanced it out. There's still, if there's strong upside, especially immediate upside like a rent increase or a utility pass through, there's still no bottom to how low investors will go when it comes to cap rates. I mean, they're pretty aggressive right now, especially for large quality products.
Well, I want to thank. Were you going to say something, Chuck?
No. I was just agreeing with Mark. So.
Okay. Well, I want to thank our guests today, Mark Perry, who specializes in the California market, and Chuck Schierbeck, who handles the Midwestern market for the most part. And these two appraisers are true experts in valuing mobile home parks. So I want to thank them for their time and their comments and their expertise today.
Oh, and thank you for the opportunity to speak on your show. So.
Yeah. So
thanks for having us.
And this show will be on YouTube with the highlights of their comments, so you can view it on our YouTube channel. Thanks, everybody. We'll be back next week with Jim Ayotte from the Florida Manufactured Housing Association. So long, everybody.